Violence and open drug use has been an ongoing concern on Calgary Transit for the last several years. So much so that 81% of Calgarians say that safety is or ought to be a concern before they decide to take transit. Ridership levels, although on the rise, are only about 50% of what they were 4 years ago. So we've decided to ride the rails to see what a typical trip looks like, because they can't all be stabbings and meth usage. But we did come equipped with a naloxone kit, because if we do see somebody in distress, we want to be able to offer our assistance. So let's see what happens.
Almost immediately, we notice a man openly drinking alcohol on the rush hour ride. He doesn't appear threatening and keeps to himself. And we continue our commute through different parts of the city, occasionally getting off to explore the platforms and see what's happening. It doesn't take long for us to run into some unsafe and uncomfortable situations. I notice a man clearly under the influence of drugs meeting his friends. For well over 30 minutes, they take over the entrance to a busy train stop. They are clearly using drugs as passengers, including children, try to pass. We witnessed an exchange of a small white parcel before the group disperses, some heading towards the buses, others down to the trains. My cameraman David captured this life-saving work by Calgary police officers as they successfully revived a man suffering from an overdose outside a downtown station. Unfortunately, overdoses on and around the transit system are all too common. In the first 9 months of this year, naloxone, which reverses an overdose, was administered 774 times by transit staff.
I can tell you that these officers saved his life.
Now, a big part of the city's transit safety plan aims to reduce the drug use and help people find the supports they need through collaborating with outreach workers and community groups like the Alpha House. And by the end of September, over 3,500 referrals and connections were made, albeit many of those individuals were repeat clients.
So we've been riding the train for a couple of days now, and thankfully we didn't need to use our naloxone kit. We didn't see any fights or any acts of violence. We did, however, see lots of people that were suffering from various states of mental distress and a lot of people that were living in very precarious, vulnerable positions. It was very disheartening. But what was actually disturbing and made me really anxious was the number of times I saw open drug use. Just right out in the open, people were smoking crack, people were using meth, they were drinking alcohol on the platforms, on the trains, on the buses, just right out in the open, and it made for a very anxious, uncomfortable experience. In those instances, we did not see any security in place, although we saw them at different stations and even just riding along just now, but they weren't there when these people were doing crack in large crowds or using meth in front of children, and it made me feel very uncomfortable. So the anxiety that is felt by so many Calgarians that rely on this system day in, day out, well, it's very understandable. Cristina Howorun, City News.